All right, section 4.2. It's called congruent figures. We've used that word congruent before. Somebody just tell me in their own words, what does that mean to be congruent? If something is congruent to something. Yeah, basically the same or equal to each other. Yeah, you can use those words. That's fine, okay? We've talked about congruent angles before. So what did that mean about the measure of those angles? They're equal to each other. We've talked about congruent segments before, correct? And what's true about the length of those segments if I said they were congruent? They are equal. Good. You got the idea. All right. What we're going to do is talk about figures. What kind of figures? Well, we're going to talk about certain shapes. What's one shape we've already talked about even in this chapter? What's the main shape that we talked about? A triangle. That's right. So we've talked about a triangle. So what does it mean for a triangle or for any other polygon? Remember what a polygon is? It's just a whole bunch of sides, right? So triangle is a polygon, right? How many sides does it have? 3. What's a 4-sided polygon? Not always. I mean, it is, but generally, what is it? Well, those are all 4-sided figures. That's true. But what in general, what's any 4-sided figure? A quadrilateral. Very good. Right? We've talked about that. Do you remember that list of things we had? I think it was even on a quiz, wasn't it? Right? Where all those gons, right? Hexagon. What's a hexagon? How many sides? Hexa? 6. What's an 8-sided figure? Octagon. What's a 10-sided figure? What is it? Teca? No. It's not teca. It's deca. Decagon. 10 is deca. How can you remember that? Because what's 10 years? 10 years is a century? It's a decade. 10 years is a decade. So deca, right? Everybody got that? So deca, right? So a decagon is what? 10-sided figure. Everybody got that? So those are all figures, right? We've talked about those. I just bring that stuff up just to recall your memory a little bit that we have talked about polygons before. We've talked about that. But what we're going to do specifically today is talk about things that are congruent to each other. Some geometry teachers, when you talk about, here, let's just do this. If, copy this, and let's just move this thing over a little bit. I want this. If I put a point right there and called this AB, and then I called this one CD, right? How do I show that two segments are equal to each other? I put a little mark. What do I call that mark? Starts with a T, a tick mark. Do you remember that? You remember me putting those little marks on there, right, to show segments are equal to each other? Yeah, all right. So what a lot of geometry teachers would say is that AB is what? CD. Not equal, but congruent to CD, all right? I'm okay, and a lot of geometry teachers might freak out by me saying this, but I don't care. Okay, it's my class. I could have you do it the way I wanted you to do it. I'm fine with you saying that AB and CD are equal to each other. I'm fine with that, all right? So if I said AB equals CD, I'm okay with that. But technically, that's not true. What does it mean when you have AB and no little line segment over top of it? We talked about this a long time ago. This was like early on. Anybody remember? If AB means the what? It means the measure of that line segment, okay? So when I talk about measurements, technically, I can only say equals when I'm talking about the measure of the line segment, how long it is. So if this was 5 and this was 5, the measures of the line segments are the same. So I could say that AB is equal to CD. But if I didn't, I know this seems very kind of dumb, but this is the way it works. In geometry, you would normally say congruent. I think I've shown you the congruent symbol before. I can't remember. Did I show you the congruent symbol? What does it look like, Cabri? It's not a line through it. That means it's not. Now, that would mean it's not equal to. Do you remember? I thought you raised your hand. What is it? It's the squiggly, right? It's an equal sign with a squiggly on top. Did I ever show you that? I must have shown you that, right? Do you remember me doing that in here? You just knew that from before? From before? Okay. Well, anyway, I'll show it to you now, okay? So if I have two segments that are congruent to each other, I don't know this is 5. I don't know that's 5, okay? I'm not talking about the measures of them. If I want to say they're congruent, this is what I would have to do. I would have to say that line segment, let's make that more look like a line segment. Okay, line segment AB and line segment CD, we would say congruent. Again, this is kind of a subtle difference that a lot of teachers make a big deal about. I don't really care that much, but I'm going somewhere with this, okay? I promise. We're going to talk about the figures in a second, and I will care. I absolutely do care if I'm comparing shapes to each other and they're congruent. I do care how you say that. But on this one, you would say congruent. What is the symbol for congruent? Well, it's an equal sign with a little squiggle on top. That means congruent, okay? Everybody see that? It basically means equals. It kind of means equals. It just means if I took this line segment and picked it up, right? Everybody see this? Look. If I took this line segment, picked it up, and put it right on top of the other one, they would match up perfectly. Everybody see that? That means that they're congruent to each other. Now, I did that for a reason because I'm going to do that with a shape here in a minute. Let's go to triangles. Actually, let's do this before I put a triangle down. Let's talk about congruent figures. Now, an angle is not really considered a figure. A line segment is not really considered a figure. Usually when we talk about a figure, it's a closed off shape, okay, if you want to call it that. All right, so I guess you could say that. So congruent figures. All right, so it doesn't have to just be a triangle. It could be any of those shapes we talked about earlier. Two things have to be true. If the two figures are congruent to each other, or 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. I mean, but if you got more than one figure, they're congruent to each other, two things must be the same. They must have the same size, and they must have the same shape. All right, that's really important. So that means if they have the same size and the same shape, they must fit on top of each other. Fit exactly. I wrote that in my notes, so let's write that. So fit exactly on top of each other. Just put it down. Thank you. Okay? All right, so let's show you what I mean by a congruent figure. And we're going to label it and all this kind of stuff. We're going to get into some more details. I don't think we're going to do, let's not talk, okay? I'm still talking here. I'm still doing stuff. We're not going to do a whole lot of math yet until we get to like example 2. All right, so there's not a ton of math part in this, but there's going to be some. Let's just draw a triangle. Again, I'm not going to make this any kind of like specific type of triangle. Doesn't have to be a right, doesn't have to be isosceles or anything like that, okay? So I'm going to group it. All right, so there's a triangle. Now, on this program that I use to teach, it's kind of nice. Like if on the board, I couldn't just copy and paste. But using this thing, it's kind of nice because I can just copy and paste. So anybody know what copy is on a computer? Control C, right, Control C. So I copied it. It didn't look like anything happened, but I copied it into the little memory bank that the computer has. What is paste? It's Control P? V, that's right. Why do you think they make it V? Whoever's dinging, you better turn your phone off. If I see it, I'm taking it. So look. If I call this triangle ABC and I call this triangle DEF, let me ask you this. Do they have the same size? Do they have the same shape? Okay, they do. If I took this and I picked it up, do you see that thing I put says fit exactly on top of each other? So watch. If I took this and I picked it up and put it right on top of the other one, what happens? They fit perfectly, don't they? Everybody see it? Okay. Yes? All right. So what are those figures to each other then? They are blank figures. What are they? Congruent. They're congruent figures. These triangles are congruent to each other. What if I did this? Watch. What if I kept it? I'm going to hit the shift key. It keeps it in proportion. So they have the same exact shape, don't they? This is the same exact shape as this one, but what's different about this? The shape is the same. Listen to me, the shape is the same. What's different? The size is different. Look, it's way bigger, okay? But it's got the same exact shape. There's another chapter that we deal a whole lot more with that kind of stuff, when we have the same shape but different sizes, okay? So we're not going to get into that. Let's take it back to the way it was, all right? So now, we've got two triangles, and what do we say? Those triangles are congruent. How do I label this triangle right here? We've done that before. First of all, what's the symbol? What's the little symbol for triangle? Well, it looks like a what? A triangle. Very good, okay? It doesn't take... Okay, it just looks like, that's not a very good one. Let's make it look a little bit nicer. Boom, boom. That's just as bad. That's good enough. So there's a triangle. So I'm going to call this triangle what? What could I name that triangle? Yeah, we can call it ABC. Is that the only thing I could call it? Do I have to start with A? No, because not everything's going to have an A in it, right? I could start with B and call it what? BCA. Or I could start with B and call it what? BAC. Or I could start, what else? With C and call it what? CBA or CAB, right? Or I could start with A. Instead of calling it ABC, I could call it what? ACB. You follow me? So that's important for what we're going to talk about here. It doesn't matter what you call the first one, but it absolutely, everybody paying attention up here. It does not matter what you call the first triangle. It absolutely matters what you call the second triangle. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's not do that. You're just taking away. It's hard enough to keep his attention. No, get it some other time. You don't need it now. Okay? So look, this is triangle ABC. If I said that they're congruent to each other, the letters have to match up. Okay? The angles have to match up. So this angle is over here on the bottom left. Which angle over here is on the bottom left? Angle D, right? So I have to call the second one. If I decide to call this ABC, I absolutely have to call the second one a certain letters, okay? I can't just pick any letters that I want, all right? So I'm going to have to call that one D, because the A and the D match up with each other. Do you see that? So if I took that, which I did earlier, I took that triangle, I picked it up, put it right on top of it, the A and the D match up perfectly, don't they? So those angles would be equal to each other, yes? What else matches up? What about the B? Which one over here matches up with the B? The E does. So I'm going to put 2 arcs here. So how many arcs am I going to put at E? 2 arcs. So I'm going to go E. Obviously, what's the only thing left? C and F. That's right. So this has to be F. So I say these triangles are what to each other? Congruent to each other. All right? It's very important. I will be picky on this. It's very important. Can somebody get the door, please? It's very important that if you call that first one ABC, that you have to call this one DEF. All right? Not just because it's in order of the alphabet. That's got nothing to do with it. All right? It has everything to do with which ones match up. Everybody paying attention? I see some are and I see some aren't. This is super important. So if I gave this 1 arc and I gave that one 2 arcs, what am I going to give this one? 3 arcs. No, you don't need a calculator. Have a seat. All right, so this is F. So there we go. Look at the A and the D. They match up. Agreed? The B and the E, they match up. The C and the F, they match up. What if I asked you to do this? Remember I said I could call triangle ABC any of those 3 letters, any combination of those 3 letters. It doesn't matter. Let's do some other combination. Let's start with B. So let's call it BAC. Is that all right? So here's what I want you to do. In your notes, I don't want to hold your hand through this whole entire thing. I want you to think a little bit. So write it down. Write down what you're going to write the name of that triangle. If I call this BAC, what are you going to call this? Write it down. Don't say it out loud. Write it down. I don't see people writing. Get your pencil out and write it down. Okay? If I called this BAC and I said the triangles are congruent, what do I have to call the other triangle? Write it down. So if I go B, A, C, I'm going to have to go what? E, D, F. It's supposed to be a D. It's weird looking. Everybody see that? Let's do another one. What if I called this, give me another way that I could name this triangle. What? CBA? All right, let's call it that. So let's look up here. If I go CBA, what am I going to have to do over here? FED. You getting the hang of it? It's not hard, is it? It's not hard at all. Let's do another combination with ABC. This will be the last one of these I do. So what's another? I've already started with A. I started with B. Started with C. Doesn't matter which one we start with. B. All right. So if I called this B instead of AC, what would I call it? CA. So let's call it BCA. So what am I going to call this triangle? If I go BCA, I have to call this one what? EFD. Everybody with me? It's super important. You're going to be using this the rest of the year. The rest of the year, you're going to be doing with triangles, and not just triangles. You're going to be doing with other shapes too. All right, but you're going to be doing a lot with triangles, believe me. You don't understand how much stuff there is to know about triangles. Something so simple with 3 sides. There's entire courses, a whole entire course called trigonometry. Have you ever heard of that before? Trigonometry, or sometimes they shorten it to trig, right? Trigonometry is a whole entire class. It's a whole entire course, basically just about triangles. Isn't that crazy? How in the world could you learn so much about triangles? There's a lot to learn, okay? We're barely scratching the surface in this class, all right? But this is important to know. It's important to understand this, all right? Now, let me show you something else. If this angle A is equal to this angle D, this angle B and E are equal, this angle C and F are equal, let's talk about the sides, the line segments, or the lengths of the sides, okay? So what if I made this 1 tick mark? What side over here is going to equal this side AB? What is it? ED. Now, let's do this, though. If I went from A to B, I don't want to call this ED. What would I want to call this? Let's call it DE, all right? Everybody with me on that? So that's got 1 tick mark. What about this? What if I put 2 right there? So BC is equal to what? EF. And then AC would equal what? DF. Everybody see that? That's really important. You could actually figure that out just from this. I'll tell you what, let's get rid of these things. Just from this thing right here, you could figure out what angles are equal to each other and what sides are equal to each other without even looking at the picture. In fact, let's scooch it up so you don't even see the picture. All right, let's get rid of all this mess. What if I asked you, by the way, let me give you another word. Do you see A and D are equal to each other? We say that they are corresponding. We've used that word before. Do you remember we did alternate interior and all that stuff? Okay, well, we did corresponding. It's a little different, though. It's not exactly the same as the corresponding before, but it's the ones that match up with each other, right? So which one matches up with angle A? If I was to take this triangle, pick it up, and put it right on top of this one, which angles would match up? That's the word corresponding. Everybody see that? So which one, let's write them down. So angle A would be congruent to what angle over here? Oh, I said we were going to do this without the triangles, didn't I? So let's do that. All right. Let's look at this, though. See, this is important. The reason it's really important to make sure everything matches up so we can write the rest of the stuff. So angle A matches up with what over here? Angle D. Because angle A is the first one, angle D is the second one. Or the first one, I'm sorry, not second one. It's the first one, okay? Everybody see it? Now, what do you think I'm going to do next? Angle what? Angle B is congruent to what? Angle what? E, right, because B is the second one, E is the second one. Then obviously whatever's left, that would be angle C is congruent to angle F. So those are 3 things you could tell by this statement. By the way, we call this a congruence statement. Congruence statement. And it's important you write the congruence statement correctly because I can just give you this and you should know what angles are equal to each other. You should also know what sides are equal to each other. So let's take a look. That's what we were getting at there in a second. So watch. What if I said AB? Line segment AB is congruent. Look over here. So AB is congruent to what over here? DE. All right, because these are the first two. These are the first two. Everybody see that? So AB is congruent to DE. What other sides do we have on this triangle? We got side AB. What's another side? What do you think? Just looking at these three letters. BC, right. Okay, so BC, line segment BC, is congruent. Now look over here. What's congruent to BC on this triangle? EF. It's really simple, isn't it? You just see which ones match up with each other. So BC and EF match up. So I go EF. What's my third side? I got side AB, I got side BC. What's my third side? You could go CA. Let's go AC. Is that all right? Since I went the first one and the second one. So let's go AC. So I could go AC is congruent to what? DF. Very good. You're getting the hang of this. I mean, this stuff is easy, but it's stuff. We're just like learning the language, okay? I've said this before. Geometry has its own language, all right? We got to learn the little bit. This is kind of like learning the alphabet to the language, right? Then later on, we'll be able to use it and put it all together, and it all makes sense to us, all right? That's what this is. We're just learning the language right now, okay? Everybody with me on that? So, yeah, so it works out. So now let's look at the picture. Let's see if that really does work out. Look, AB and DE. Well, AB is this one, DE is this one. Did they look like they're the ones that match up? Absolutely. Look at BC. BC is this one. EF, just like we said right here, yep, they equal each other. And then the third one, AC and DF, they match up with each other, and they are congruent to each other. Not hard, but it's stuff that we need to talk about. We need to get straightened out. All right, so let's see. That's all I have written for the regular notes. Let's do... All right, this one's a little trickier. This is example 1. It's in the book. I think they might even have a picture to it, but I'm just going to draw a little sketch of it. So they have one... let's bring it down a little bit. I'm going to copy and paste and move this over to there. So they line up just right. All right, and then I'm going to, let's see, split this in the middle. That looks about in the middle. I'm going to make a little roof, and that's basically what they're doing right here. They're making, oops, there we go. Make a little roof here. I'm going to copy and paste that, and then I think I can just flip it around. Let's see, click this and flip horizontally. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. All right. Well, I didn't do that like I wanted to. I thought those were, do these look like they match up? Yeah, they do. Why didn't that? Maybe because I just got to slide this over a little bit. It's probably because I didn't put it right in the middle. Anyway, I'm trying to be precise with this. Sorry. Really don't have to be that precise. That's good enough. Okay. Looks like a little house, right? And here's a little thing right there. And again, let's copy and paste. This only takes a second, so let's just do this. Let's flip that horizontally, and let's put this right there. All right. So that matches up pretty good. And it's a little off right there, but good enough. All right, let's put some letters in here. So this point right here is U. This is V. This is W. They don't put anything on the top. This is X, and this is Y. Okay? Now, here's what they tell you. They tell you if triangle UVW is congruent, this is where it really makes a difference if everything's lined up correctly. Y, X, W. The question says, list all the corresponding parts. Well, let's do this. I'll just shorten corresponding to that. What do I mean by the corresponding parts? How many parts does this triangle have? It's got angles and it's got what? Sides. So these right here are the corresponding parts. Everybody see that? Specifically, these are the corresponding what? Right here that I circled. Angles, and these are the corresponding what? Well, sides. The sides, right. So I got angles and I got sides. So when I talk about the corresponding parts, I'm talking about the corresponding angles, and I'm talking about the corresponding sides. Okay? A lot of new words, all right? But that's what we're here to do. So what I want to do is let's find the angles first. Now sometimes that's hard because look at this triangle, UVW. Let's kind of like overlap it in a color, and I'll make the color a little thicker. UVW. So which triangle are we talking? Oops, I thought I was going to make it. Let's change the color. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. Yeah, it is thick because I want it to really pop. Okay, so UVW. Everybody see that one? So there's the one triangle. Let's do it in green. All right, let's do the other triangle. What's the other triangle? Y what? XW. YXW. Actually, these don't overlap. They made this too easy. I thought they were going to have them overlap. But that's okay. We'll do it like this. They started you off real easy. That wasn't a very good straight line, but you get... Oops, what am I doing? You get the gist. Let me... that's worse. Let's try one more time. I got shaky hands or something. There we go. That looks a little better. All right, so those are my triangles right there. So I want to... let's grab that. I want to find the corresponding angles to these triangles. The pink one and the green one. We'll call it that one. Everybody with me on that? All right. Now, what I would do is this. You basically don't even have to look at the triangle, all right, because they already gave you the congruent statement. Once they give you the congruent statement, then it's very easy to see which ones match up. So which one matches up with angle U? Just by the congruent statement. So here's angle U. Which one's equal to angle U over here? Is it this one? Is it this one? Or is it this one? It's Y. How do you know it's Y? Because the U and the Y go together. You see it? The U is the first one. The Y is the first one. That means that this angle here is equal to this angle here. So let's write it down. Angle what? U equals angle what? Y. All right? This is really simple. It's basically just rehashing what we did before, but now we got a picture that looks a little different, and then we can look at it. Because if I took this green one and picked it up, does it look like it would lie right on the pink one? Like if I just picked it up, moved it over, boom, stuck it right there. Does it look like the green one and the pink one would match up? No, it looks like it'd have to do something first with the green one. What does it look like it'd have to do? Flip it. That's right. I'm going to have to flip it, then pick it up, move it over, then it would sit right on top, wouldn't it? Okay? Everybody see that? I might even have to change, I don't know if I have to change the angle or not. Maybe not. But anyway, I'd have to flip it. Yes? Okay. So, but with this, it's really easy to see which ones match up. See, this one and this one match up. If I took that green one, I went, flipped it like that, then those two angles would match up, wouldn't they? They'd sit right on top of each other. All right? What other angles match up? It's very easy once you have that congruent statement. What is it? V and what? V and X. And then angle W and what? And W. That's right, angle W. All right? Now, it's hard to say just angle W because how do you know which one I'm talking about? I don't know if I'm talking about that one. I don't know if I'm talking about this one or this one or this one, right? So you got to be careful. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but that's what it would be. Well, I tell you what, let's be careful with it. So the V and the X would equal each other. I'll put two arcs there. So these would equal each other. So what would I call, instead of calling it W equals W, because that is kind of silly. Probably don't want to write it like that. What would this angle right here, this one right here, what would I call that angle? If I started at V. V what? W. And then what? I need three letters. VWX? That's not this angle. VWX would be this angle. VWU. Very good. All right. Should have said WVU, West Virginia University, right? That's where my family's from, West Virginia. So let's do that. Let's call it WVU. Is that all right? Actually, it's not the same angle. That V would be that. So let's call it this, VWU. Virginia West University. All right. So angle VWU. Now look, if I go VWU, what am I going to have to go do over here? I'm going to have to go what? X, what? WY. All right. Angle XW. Does that match up with this? Look, VWU. So I'm going the second one, the third one, the first one. Everybody see that? Second, third, first. What's this one? Second, which is X. Third one, which is W. First one, which is Y. So it does work, doesn't it? Right? It works on the picture. It makes sense on the picture. And it makes sense when you do this. So that was a little bit trickier because we can't just say W. We can't just say angle W because I don't know which one I'm talking about. How do I know I'm not talking about this right there? That could be angle W, couldn't it? This could be angle W. I got to be specific. All right? Like V, there's really, I guess you could call this angle right here V, but this is the only one from V. This is the only one from U. But from W, I'm not really sure. So let's keep going. What's the third thing, or the second part of this? I got the angles, now I got to find the what? The sides. Now, if you wanted to just use the picture, that's fine. If you wanted to use the congruent statement, that would be fine as well. Scooch that up just a little bit. So let's do the sides. Let's do this side first, UV. So UV would be congruent to what? If I go U to V, would I go XY? Yeah, I would go YX. Okay. Does that work with the congruent statement, UV and YX? Yeah. UV is the first two, YX is the first two. See how it matches up? So this congruent statement and the picture, I think they're both really important. Okay, but that congruent statement, it's super important that the ones that match up, all right, it's in the right order with the ones that match up. You can see if you mix the order up, everything would mess up. All right, so I got UV. What's another side you want to do? Let's do VW. VW would equal, if I go VW, what am I going to have to do? XW, that's right, XW. And then the last one, just scooch it up a little bit. What else we got? You want to go UW? Doesn't matter how you write it. You could go WU or UW. Let's go UW. So UW is congruent. UW, what would I do over here in this picture? I would go YW. And those are the parts that match up. So look, this one and this one would be equal to each other. This one and this one would be equal. And this one and this one would be equal to each other. And that's really important. It really is. Because when they give you a congruent statement, they're giving you a lot of information. All right? They're telling you what angles are equal. They're telling you what sides are equal. All right? So it's important. You understand why it's important to put it in the right order? Okay, I can't just write this in any order and then decide to write this in any order because the congruent statement wouldn't make any sense then. So it's super important that you put the triangles in the right order. Am I boring you?
No.
Let's do an example. That was example. That was an example. This is also an example. And, it says refer to example 1. So we're going to use that same picture. Man, there's so much mess here. Let's just get rid of all this. Let's get rid of this. All right, everybody, look, just because I'm doing this doesn't mean you get to have talk time. That's not what we're doing. Hey, what did I just say?
Sorry.
How does it not sync through? Maybe you don't think I'm talking to you. All right, there's my original picture. Tell you what, let's just get rid of all this. Since I can. All right. So now we'll use this picture for example 2 because they still use the picture. Actually, let's just do this. Let's just change that to 2. There we go. Now we got a clean slate. We're good to go. So here's what it says. The problem says to find X. I'm going to have to look at the picture. Because I didn't write what X is on the picture and all that stuff. But actually, no. I got it. It says find angle X. I'm sorry. If, and they give you that same congruent statement. So let's just write it down again. U, V, W is congruent to triangle YXW. All right? And they tell you a couple things. Here's what's different. Okay? They're going to put some numbers in here. So this is like the only time today we're going to do some real numbers. So they tell you that angle U is equal to 22 degrees. We'll draw this on the picture just in a second. And they tell you that angle UWV is equal to 30 degrees. And what we're trying to find is what? Angle X. So let's put these in here again. This may not be super accurate, but it's close enough. Oops, what did I just do? Okay. All right, so let's put some stuff in here. What do I know? Angle U is 22 degrees. So angle U, this one right there, is 22 degrees. All right, what else do we know? Angle UWV, where's that? I forgot to put the W in here. There's W. UWV, that's this one right here. That's 30 degrees. And the question says, find angle X, which is this angle right there. It's like, how in the world can I find angle X when I don't know any angles inside that triangle? It's impossible, right? No, it's not impossible, because what do I know about this triangle? What happens here? Is that what they say? All right, so look, what's true? What do I know about this triangle and this triangle right here? They tell you that they are what? Congruent to each other, right? That's right. So all the corresponding parts should equal each other, yeah? So even though I'm trying to find this angle, what angle over here is the same as this angle right here that I'm trying to find? It's not the 22. The V. Look at it. Look. Here's X. It's a terrible circle. There's X. What am I doing? And there's what? V. Oh, it's acting weird again. It's probably, I'm not going to be able to write. But that's okay, because you can still figure this out. So look, this angle right there is the same as this angle right there. Do you see it? The V and the X. So how in the world would I find this if I know this is 22 and this is 30? Add them up. Okay, so let's add them up. 30 plus 22 is what? 52. Does that mean that angle's 52? No, what do I do? You're right, you got it. So you remember that stuff. So I take it away from 180. And what's that? 128, is that right? So there you go. So angle V is 128 degrees. That's the kind of stuff that they're going to ask you to do. All right? But you got to know things about congruent triangles, because they ask you this angle right there. And you're like, well, I can't find that angle because I don't know anything in here. But this angle and this angle are the exact same angle. And you can find this one. So if angle V is 128, what's angle X? Is 128. And that's the kind of stuff that they're going to give you. Okay? All right. Pretty good timing. You have a homework assignment, and it's 1 to 14. It's section 4.2, 1 to 14. It's pages 159, so it's pages 159, 160, and it's section 4.2. All right, that's it. Have that done for tomorrow, okay? That is due tomorrow.